Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Super-Fanta-Fi. This being a show where I talk about TV shows of the supernatural, fantasy, and or science fictional genre. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the season finale of Evil. A great episode. Holy shit, the amount of stuff that went down in this episode is nuts. Let's break it down. First, we got that opening. I was like, okay, this is stuff from the first episode. I was like, what's this about? But then, she recognizes she's looking at her phone, really, oh, I can't read. Oh, this is a dream. And she's preparing herself because she knows what LaRue's going to do. Got her hand on a chair. LaRue strikes. She smacks him in the face with the chair. And then she's like, yeah, how you like that? And he kicks him. And it's like, yeah. Next dream, George comes. And she's like, no, I've been waiting for you. He's like, wait. What? And then he stabs him in the back with some scissors. He falls back. It's like, all right, so George is dealt with. Yeah. And then she hears clapping. She goes out. It is what I'm assuming, as I assumed before, is the devil himself. Is standing there clapping, and she's like, wait, obviously Kristen's kind of confused by this, but it's like, shouldn't you be taking that? You should just be taking that job that your husband offered you, because basically it's like, rather than kind of getting into our business, just won't you be so much happier just taking your husband's job? Is kind of what that was saying. She wakes up, and her daughter Lexi is kind of there, and she's like, oh, I saw him too, and it's like, wait, we're having connected dreams, and then she starts bleeding from her mouth. Kristen wakes up yet again. It's like, woo, dream within a dream within a dream. And it's just like, ah. So while all that's kind of going down, obviously things have kind of got Kristen thinking like, all right, she's bringing up questions like, so is mom still dating Leela? Is your grandma still dating Leela? And they're like, oh, I don't know. Because they're once again, just adorableness of the kids. You can always pick up one conversation out of the four that's happening at the same time. But it's like, oh yeah, I don't think so. Well, maybe, I'm not really sure. So Kristen's kind of getting paranoid because it's like, how would that dude know about that job offer? The only people that know that, and Kristen ends up bringing up later on, is her, Andy, and she told her mom. So that's interesting. Sending the girls off to school, because obviously Kristen's thinking well, grandma might not be as around as much, it's kind of like, I won't get grandma to kind of babysit right now. Lo and behold, who's outside the house waiting? LaRue. And it's like, he's like, oh, I want to make amends and stuff like that. It's like, you're full of crap. And Kristen's calling the cops on him and everything, but he's like, oh. And, it's like, well, I've been saved, but it's like, oh, you're so full of shit. What's also interesting later on is that Mira shows up. It's like, yeah, you're in trouble for assaulting him. And she's like, what? I never even touched him. For one, he was literally hanging out in front of my house. I'm like, yo, aren't you recognizing that being the bigger issue here? Which then part of my brain goes, you don't think Mira's a part of this? I don't think so. But then it just seemed, I think more so than anything, Mira wasn't really listening to anything that Kristen had to really say, because everything that went down in court last episode, she kind of got ripped apart, so Kristen kind of put her in a tough spot. So I think Mira was kind of like, I'm got to do my job. Normally I'd at least try to kind of extend an olive branch to be friendly with you in this, under these circumstances, let you know what's really going on, but I'm not even doing that. Just stay away from LaRue. But I was like, she didn't even touch him. But then I was like, but wait, she jacked him up real good in that dream of hers. So it's like, well, some connections there and everything. There's even this line from her little girl Lexi with being like, oh yeah, I know I've had the same nightmare too. And she's like, how do you know what I had a nightmare about? It's like, because you told me, Mom. And it's like, well, because they had that dream within a dream. So it's like, I guess her and Lexi had that dream. There was a connection, a real connection there. Or maybe subconsciously she ended up telling her. Or maybe Lexi thought oh, you told me. But it's like, no, that was actually in Lexi's dream. Her mom told her, but maybe it wasn't actually her mom. That's a whole thing in itself. But obviously, Kristen's new case with the team is a pregnant lady named Eleanor who's having twins. It's actually Kurt who actually brings the case to him. It's like, wait, you don't believe in all this? He said, I don't. But after seeing the exorcism at play and seeing what it means, it's like, if the person believes in the exorcism, then maybe, it's psychologically going to help in that regard. But it turns out Eleanor believes that she's possessed. But then it turns out, oh, she doesn't believe that she's possessed. I live with Kurt's like, yeah, Kristen, hey, Eleanor, this is Kristen, David, and Ben. And it's like, and I love later on, it's like, oh, we find out that I think Kurt's secretary or whatever, it's working, or at least someone that works in his office is working with Leland. It's kind of showing like his reach is kind of everywhere. But I love the fact that it's like, yeah, Kristen, David, and that other guy. I'm like, I love that Ben's just the other guy and everyone else. It's like no one knows Ben's name. I feel so bad for him. But the fact of the matter is, Eleanor doesn't believe she is possessed. She believes her baby to be possessed, specifically her son. She's like, her daughter's okay, but she feels like her son is just, there's something there. She's like, I know a lot of people don't believe me. Because obviously even Kristen's trying to handle this from a psychological standpoint, but she's like, I'm not crazy. My baby's possessed. I know it's going to sound crazy, but that's what's up. At the same time, like I said, so much happening at once. Kristen confronts her mom about the whole thing, and like basically it's like, yo, here's an ultimatum. You either choose your grandchildren or you're picking Leland. And she's like, oh, you're putting me in this position, you know, because she thinks like, oh, because in her mind she thinks it's just like, what if it's a petty reason that Kristen has an issue with Leland, but obviously it's not a pet. It's just so much more. There's so much gravitas to this whole thing. But obviously for it's her, it's like, I'm so happy, and she kind of kisses Kristen, and it's like, all right, goodbye. So she's gonna be with Leland. I mean. Which is so interesting that you say all that, but I guess because it's hard to say, like, because her desires are kind of like, I guess, clouding her mind. So what Leland says kind of goes, like he's legitimately corrupted her. So it's like she's literally stealing stuff. She, like the whole 70, that map of like the 70, like Leland gets it now because Cheryl gave him like a copy. Not Cheryl, or is it it's Sheila, right? Or is it Cheryl? I'm blanking on Kristen's mom's name, but she gave him a copy of it, and it's like you don't see what's wrong with that, but maybe in her mind kind of being this haze that she's thinking like, oh no, like I'm just it's professional stuff, it's not that big of a deal, I don't have to worry about it, there's no harm no foul type of thing, you know. So that's interesting. I'm like, okay, and LaRue's there, and Leland gives Kristen's mom's key to him. It's like, yeah, go to Kristen's place. And I'm like, oh, this is not good on so many damn fronts. So obviously, going back to the case and everything, David and Kristen are continuing to talk to Eleanor, but she's like, something just isn't right. And obviously, like, you know, she's kind of like tired, like she wants Kristen to just listen to her. She's like, so many people haven't listened to me, and so David's willing to listen to her and gives her the a rosary with, like, you know, a cross and everything, and she touches it, but nothing happens to it. It's like, see, you're not possessed, but then puts it on her stomach, and we have immediate like jump scare reaction of like boom, and it's like, oh, like the hand or whatever kind of moved up against the skin or whatever, and it's just like, oh. And it's kind of like, okay. And like obviously like David had said some like stuff, and it seemed like it was affecting it. And obviously they want to kind of go through the exorcism, but now the whole thing is, well, the father in particular doesn't want to, because he thinks like to be possessed you have to welcome in possession. So it's like there's no way this baby is actually possessed. So because of that, he's not willing to. Which even he's kind of like, but even David kind of calls back on that by being like, well, if it's really like that, then why is it kind of a sin to commit abortion? If you're kind of saying like someone is impossible, like basically saying that a baby doesn't exist enough to be able to welcome in a possession and kind of welcome in the devil, yet someone can be punished for having an abortion because it's like, you know, you're killing this entity with a soul. So it's like, it's a thing that, the way David was kind of analyzing it was almost kind of like, doesn't that seem like it kind of contradicts itself? But then you have, you know, Ben being like, well, maybe it's an infestation to basically bless, you know, exercise the womb. And even Kristen leaning in like, pretty smart for a non-believer. So that's an interesting element. I even love that they're in church with David and everything. And it's kind of this cute moment where it's like, obviously it's like, oh yeah, like, you know, Kristen, because Ben's like, oh, so yeah, she used to believe in this? She's like, yeah. And kind of talking about some of the stuff. And I love Ben being like, man, your religion is just filled with blood, isn't it? And then, and David's over there being like, shh. And then like Kristen and Ben are shushing each other. It's actually adorable. I love them as friends. They're so good. But when it came to Eleanor eating the cracker, I was like, oh. And she falls over. I was like, oh. And the physician, I was like, you don't think what's going to... And blood gushes from her. And I'm like, oh my God, that's a shit ton of blood. I'm like, holy crap. So it's like, yeah, adding more validity to the fact is her baby just might be possessed. And even to the point, like during the exorcism and stuff like that, even Kurt's kind of saying some of the passages, because I think even he's kind of getting caught up in this. I think everyone's starting to be like, yo, that baby might be, possessed in the grand scheme of things. So you had the whole thing with LaRue calling up Kristen, talking about all the terrible things he's going to do, like snap her kids' necks and stuff like that. And Ben's like they're trying to find a way to record it. But by the time Ben gets around recording it, all that's left is like all the apologies and stuff like that. And she's like, well, what were you going to do? It's like, it's because, interesting, obviously he's working with Leland. He's not going to be stupid enough to say stuff. It's like, oh, you want me to repeat it because you didn't get any of that in recordings. I'm not going to give you the satisfaction like you got against Leland. Fool me once, shame on me. Fool me twice, shame on you. Type of situation. So I think that's what it was. It was kind of learning from Leland's mistake. I mean, granted, the recording didn't go through, but it's the type of thing of like, I'm not going to give you the opportunity and ammunition to kind of use against me. Kristen ends up getting Ben to like add a security system as well as new locks, which obviously is the best timing considering the fact is LaRue now has keys to your house because unbeknownst to you, because your mom kind of inadvertently gave them to him, obviously Leland. But regardless, the fact of the matter is I was like, oh, that timing actually couldn't be more perfect. And obviously it's like, yeah, here are these keys. Be careful about grandma. The fact of the matter is the security system and stuff like that was set up by Ben. It's like Ben the Magnificent. I love how giddy they get about Ben and everything. But regardless, the fact of the matter is, Kristen kind of feels a little more reassured. But then the problem is, and wasn't someone supposed to be watching him? It's like, how the hell did that whole situation fall through? But maybe it's just like, well, the daughters are old enough that they can look after each other. I guess the other person was, whoever it was, it's like, oh, they're just going to be looking after you. I guess it's meant to be just kind of like they look after you for a bit. Just to kind of make sure everything's okay, check on you every once in a while. But then there was also that moment of Lexi having blood in her mouth, and she's like, where's that blood coming from? It's like, I brushed my teeth too much. And I love, like, you can hear one of the siblings being like, yeah, we only got, like, so much blood in, like, basically saying, like, you got to be careful because we only have so much blood in our body or something. Like I said, you always get to get little pieces of, like, the conversation. I think it's kind of adorable. But then Lexi kind of hears the doorbell and obviously opens the door. And then it's the devil, and he's like, you're going to level up. And I'm like, what the hell does that mean? And tries to close the door and everything, but it doesn't work. And by the time Kristen gets back there, Lexi's asleep on the floor. The door was open. She sees a package gift from LaRue, and it's like, all right. So she's up getting like a weapon of her climbing it. I'm like, oh, what are you going to do, Kristen? Then later on, when Ben and David met up, where he was like, yo, is that blood on your leg? And she's like, no, see, there's no blood on my leg. It's like, do you want me to say I didn't see blood on your leg? And she's like, I want you to see that there's no blood on my leg. And he's like, everything okay? He's like, yep. It's like the security system is like duck, because duck was the password. Because if someone's come shooting at you, you're going to duck. So I was like, at that point, I was like, Kristen didn't do something, did she? I was like, no. It's like Kristen could she? And then that's that side of things. But we got to circle back to the big revelations because there ends up being some interesting stuff that goes down. Obviously, Eleanor gets examined, and it turns out she only has one baby in her womb, only has her son. And it's like, wait, I was having twins. Where's the other one? Well, it's the whole thing of like, well, it's the whole thing about like a twin absorbing the other one. But the thing is, even the doctor was like, typically that doesn't happen this late in the pregnancy, but as that's what it is. But for her, it's like, you might want to call it other stuff, but I'm going to call it like it is. My son ate my daughter. So obviously that's making her more paranoid and everything about the situation. And obviously David and Ben start talking, and then we find out like this is connected to a fertility place called RSM. And the fact is, it has that specific triangle that David kept seeing in his dreams and everything. And it turns out, where did this place take shop? New York, Chicago, and Washington, the 3 points. It's like, wait, what? Yo, this was the moment, dude. I was like, what? Like, stuff in the episode was already crazy. We got to this moment, I started losing my mind. Slowly but surely, we've been connecting the dots with stuff over the season. This was the moment we started connecting everything. It's like the little boy, Eric, who ended up trying to drown his baby sibling. And the fact of the matter is, the parents end up killing him. Eric, that kid, he was from this place. This is where he was the in vitro happened where he could be born. Then like also the man who took all the what was his name, like Daniel or something? The dude who took the blame for all of LaRue's murders. Obviously, it was all being pinned on his wife because she was possessed and stuff like that, right? So it's like all that went down. So it's like, yo, we're connecting everything, and it's like, holy crap. So it's like basically, and I like the revelation of like, basically, this is where it all starts, because the whole point, and he remembers the Matthew 13 thing that he was supposed to remember like a couple episodes ago, right? And he finally pieces it together of like what it was implying, that basically, and ends up bringing this up later on. The whole point is, why waste time trying to corrupt people with kids as they get older when you can get them before they're even born, corrupt them from the beginning, the seed, and then that evil is growing more and more throughout. So that's really interesting, and that kind of explains a lot. And it's like, yeah, and David brings this up to Kristen, but then Kristen realizes she actually went to this facility herself. Her daughter Lexi was born this way. Sets off some red flares. It's like, that's what the devil, once again, what I'm saying is a devil, maybe it's just a demon, but I think it's a devil considering the fact that Leland's listening to him. That's why Lexi's been seeing him. That's why he meant level up. He's pushing her to kind of go to the next level, kind of pushing her down a darker path, like like all these others. So it's like to corrupt the next generation, like right from the get-go, rather than waiting to corrupt them. Why not affect them and corrupt them from the very beginning? I'm like, dude, this is literally this is some conspiracy on a supernatural level, and I was like, I'm all in for it. I was like, hell yes. Oh, and then we can't forget about Leland proposing to Kristen's mom, and she being like, yeah, because obviously she started feeling a little torn, because it's like, well, I want to be there. My family is the most important thing to me. At that moment, obviously Leland's got to make it like, oh, like, don't worry about choosing one of us. Why not choose both of us? I want you to stay in my life, but you can have your family too. And it's like, just when she feels like she might sway more towards her family, you're pulling those puppeteer strings to kind of string her along, to kind of keep her in your under your spell, your thrall, and everything. So it's like, okay. And obviously she brings this up to Kristen. Kristen not too happy about it, kind of shuts the door in her mom's face. I mean, to be fair, because she's like, oh, the fact of the matter is, I want you just to be happy for me. I've never been this happy before. It's like, yep, got no time for you, mom, because now, she's got all this kind of on her mind. David has this, vision where he's kind of in the field and he sees Kristen, but he turns around and he sees the devil kind of like cutting things down, and Kristen is subconsciously going towards him. And then in my mind, it's like, so is that supposed to mean that Kristen is being thralled in, or at least pulled in by the devil? Which I guess in the grand scheme of things, I guess that's what that's supposed to mean, is that over the course of the series, maybe that basically everything that's kind of been happening to her has been supposed to be pushing her as someone who, maybe it's because in the beginning she was a non-believer, but maybe she's not the non-believer that she thinks she is, and is getting to the point that she's starting to believe, and her belief is kind of swaying her, and maybe everything from the daughters to her mom and everything that's going down has been for the purpose of maneuvering them in this position of trying to push Kristen, like corrupting her, because maybe it's the thing of like corrupting someone from the beginning is fine, corrupting people who are kind of on that level, fine, but corrupting someone who's a non-believer, now that's something else, maybe something special about that. And obviously we have the thing where Kristen gets a call from Mira. It's like, yeah, LaRue is dead, and Kristen's like, oh, what, he is? And I'm like, you did that? No, you can't. You did. Oh my, I was like, what? And it's like, now it explains why that vision that David had even more. It's like, she actually committed murder. And it's like, ooh, that's nuts. Which is such a shame, because she had that conversation with David earlier, because like trying to understand like why this is so important for David. Because for David, the whole thought of just like, us dying, it's like for him it doesn't make any sense for like when we die, just that life to kind of end. So for him, he is kind of afraid of death, for it just to be a blank spot. So he wants there to be be more than just us kind of rotting in the ground. And I mean, for one, you can understand, because it's also like, that's a very pessimistic way of looking at things, just kind of being like, yeah, just accept the fact is we rot in the ground. And even him being like, I don't know why most people don't go through their lives being terrified of it, but I do love that moment of, you know, David being like happy. He's like, I'm glad we're talking. And she's like, we weren't? He was like, yeah, there was a minute there we weren't, but she's like, I'm glad we're talking again too. And I'm like, that's good. Circling back to it, the whole but the conversation with Mira was interesting. Where Mira was like, yeah, I just wanted to let you know, yeah, it's not that bad, kind of almost sounding like she's like, yeah, he kind of deserved it or something. Hence why I'm like, is Mira a part of this? Is she kind of playing her own role in this as well? Is she one of the 60, you know, much like the lady that, like I said, the lady that was in Kurt's office. But part of me is also wondering, is she saying that because she was actually trying to listen to Kristen's voice to see whether it's like, because she knew Kristen would be the number one person, and then on top of that, it makes you wonder, was she trying to suss her out, being like, oh, I already know you did it, but I just wanted to hear to see what you would say, or is she not actually sure but has a gut instinct about it? I don't know kind of which way to kind of interpret that. But then at the ending, like obviously like it's taking its toll on Kristen. She pulls out, you know, a rosary, and you know it has a cross on it, and she places it on her hand. At first it seems like, oh, I was like, oh, is it actually gonna? It seems like it's okay. And then nope, her hand gets burnt, and it's like, and now once again, Kristen, who definitely at the beginning of this series did not believe. Now you're starting to see she does believe, and it's kind of showing that maybe she's kind of being corrupted in the process, much like Lexi. Now the big question is, did she kill LaRue? I think she did, but maybe it's going to be a thing of something else happened. Maybe she messed him up, but maybe she didn't kill him. I don't know. I wasn't expecting that. And obviously, like, her potentially have done that. Like, what does that mean for her and David's relationship? And there's just so much going on. Because another thing I forgot about that was, because I was like, I didn't talk about all the things that connected. Because it's like, yeah, that creepy music that was being made, because Leland kind of set that whole situation up to be made to kind of corrupt people. That was also being used from the fertility facility as well, because it just crossed my mind, because I remembered Ben picking up the bear and everything. That's kind of what set things in motion. But yes, that's a lot to kind of like process, and that's one hell of a way to kind of end off the season. Evil has been renewed for a second season, and I am so excited, especially when you give me an ending like that. It's like, I need some resolution. I mean, granted, who knows who will get the full scope of resolution in season 2, but it's like, where is season 2 going to take us with all of this? Because there's still that Andy situation we can't forget about. Andy made that whole thing of like, oh yeah, let's save our daughter. Like, you know, I kind of basically said like, kind of take my life, which, you know, Kristen was like, what? But it's like, don't worry, it doesn't. And it's like, no, that's going to turn into something, especially with everything that's kind of spiraling and happening right now. I don't know. And like I brought up, what does this mean for Kristen and David's relationship? With obviously that's complicated, but the fact of the matter is, he had that vision of her kind of walking towards the devil, knowing that she's kind of walking down that path. Ben saw the blood on her leg. They find out about LaRue. There's gonna be some pieces kind of put together, and the question then becomes, like I said, are we going with the angle of she did do it, or was she going to do it but never did it? So is it going to be the thing of it's super obvious, like, oh my god, Kristen totally did it? Or is it just going to be a thing of like, it's supposed to be a red herring because someone else actually did it, but the whole purpose is to kind of put her in the spotlight? There's another angle to this that we got brought up, last episode? No, the episode before last? I think. I'm trying to remember. Yeah, the episode before last. We've never circled back to is the whole Judy situation. So is anything going to come about that either? Maybe not. Maybe they'll just kind of leave it at that. But it just seemed like they were setting that up for something. So I think we're going to see more of that potentially in the future as well. Obviously, a big thing is like, once again, deciphering the 90, that map, / chart. So it's like, obviously, Leland is in the process of trying to decipher it, but the fact of the matter is he hasn't really figured it out, neither has Kristen. So, and what this means between her and her mom, it's just so much complicated stuff, and her kids, especially Lexi. Like, where's this gonna? What does this mean for her? Because even Ben had brought it up. It's like, well, maybe this turns into a nature versus nurture thing. It's like, well, obviously, Kristen's been nurturing the good sides of her children, but at the same time, it's like, well, now we've seen the bad side of Kristen being nurtured, and maybe the same thing gets reflected in this regard. Who knows? Like I said, I'm so excited. I cannot wait for season 2 to find out where all of this is going to go. This season was already wild. From the beginning, this show has been wild, and it's just got wilder and wilder as the season went on. This has just been so great. I am very, very excited for season 2. But really, that's all I'm going to talk about. So the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.